Hello, welcome to Garden Chronicles. My name is James David, and in today's video, I would like to talk about this ever-blooming flowering plant known as Clerodendrum thomsoniae, commonly known as bleeding heart vine. So here I'll be talking a little more on their care and cultivation. So sit back and enjoy the show. Just a little bit of an introduction. Do you know that it's locally known as Bunga Nyonya Makan Sirih, meaning a fair lady eating a betel leaf? Sort of an idea of a customary tradition where these elements of tradition were observed, and so it is sort of in a way that if you look at it, the flowers is sort of like giving out a kind of a lips, and the red thing is coming out that was being a sort of like spitting out whatever excess that is coming out from the mouth, sort of like whatever that comes out. Pardon me. So with all things said, this particular plant is actually a whining plant, in a way to be said that it actually trails and climbs over something. Do take note that if you want to cultivate it, it is not like other Clerodendrums plants where it is growing upright, normally the pagoda plant, or earlier when I spoke about this Melo Jawa, the Clerodendrum bungae, in sort of those are actually upright. But however, this particular type, the bleeding heart vine, this one is actually more of a trailing type. However, it does not have any kinds of a climbing apparatus growing from the plant, so you will not find tendrils or anything. But however, their vines are quite resilient. They somehow find their way in nook, crook and corner, so do take concern about it, because it can be messy and in a way invasive. Now, first thing first, when it comes to lighting, this particular one, this flowering plant, is very much of a shade-loving plant. You can actually cultivate it in full sun, but however, they can also grow well in shaded areas. So imagine if you're having any place where something like a balcony or some of the challenging areas where nothing seems to grow and you really like to have blooms, this particular plant will be an ideal plant to cultivate. Another factor that I would really love this particular plant, it is that it is a very hardy plant. You can imagine that it can go well with any type of potting media, from fast draining to a regular potting mix. However, I believe that more on a nutrient potting mix will ensure more flowering, especially when it comes to strong, rich compost or any of this heavy nutrient based medium. This particular one will be a heavy bloomer. Another fact about watering, I find that they can do with adequate watering, not too much and not too less. However, I find that it's not of those finicky types that if you forget to water or you have overwater that the plant will die away. This particular one is not of that kind. Somehow I find this particular plant able to handle whatever that nature throws at it. So in a way, you can consider that if it's a daily watering or alternative watering, or at least 2 or 3 days once of a watering, this particular plant can handle it. As I mentioned earlier, that this is actually a whining plant, hence it can be very messy and invasive, and because of that factor, it does respond very well when it comes to pruning. Pruning ensures that you can actually direct the plant from the position where you want it to focus its growth. In a way, you can also prune it in a point where you can just grow where you desire it to be. Ideally, you can actually let it climb over a paragola and let it cascade down, or some of the fencing areas where you want it to create a privacy zone where this vine actually cover most of the viewing factor. There is so many options and ideas that you can actually prune and trail and make this plant follow according to your creative desires. Personally, I would like to share some tips concerning this particular plant. I will normally strip off all the leaves, especially the matured one, from the bottom all the way to the flowering zone. And what I'll do here is that when it comes to all the vines that is sprouting out from the side of the branches, I will normally twine it and make it like pleats and make it like a long twisting effect, something like what you place for a arch or doorway at the entrance of a dwelling place. When coming to pest controls, I have found that this particular plant is very hardy and resilient, and no pest seems to be a factor on them. Amazingly, I find that when it comes to mealybug or even scale insects, they do attack other plants but never come close to this particular one. So in a way, I can say that if you're worried about insects and pests, this particular plant will be the best and ideal plant to cultivate. Now, with all things has been mentioned, there's one factor when it comes to challenges is the propagation. I have not come across these particular flowers forming fruits, even though I've noticed that there are a lot of pollinators coming over to the blooms, but they have never formed any fruits, and therefore planting them using seeds is not achievable. Hence, the only way you can actually propagate it is by stem cutting. And unlike most flowering plants where stem cutting can be easy, but this particular one can be challenging. It's somehow more on a trial and error, and in the success rate can be much less. So in a way, it's more on a factor where you may have to try like 5 to 6 cuttings and maybe 1 or 2 survive. If you ask me, the method of propagation is not that difficult. All you have to do is prune them at least about 3 to 4 nodes, and using the matured stem, use the stem in place where you put it in a rich potting medium and lightly water it, and do not disturb it until you see a new growth taking place. Normally this process will take roughly about 3 to 4 weeks, and so a lot of patience is required. Place them in a bright shaded area, but do not expose them to direct sun and rain. Eventually you will find new nodes appearing from the side of the leaves, and you will find that even though the nodes are appearing with young shoots, they are quick to bloom with flowers. So there's a beauty about this particular plant when it comes to bleeding heart vine. Now when it comes to the types of this particular type of the bleeding heart vine, I have come across 3 different types. As if you have viewed earlier the red version, this is the white version, and I also come across the variegated version where the leaves have white spots and blotches. However, the flower is of the white variety. Somehow I find that the variegated version seems to be very sensitive and slow growing plants. I had once that particular plant, but eventually it died out of stress. So if you are planning to grow a white variety of a variegated species, do give a lot of concern and care, as this particular plant, that particular one, is sensitive. Now I have come to the end of my video. I would truly appreciate and would really love you if you can click subscribe and like, and put on your thoughts or whatever queries that you would like to ask about this particular bleeding heart vine. I just realized that mentioning about the common name bleeding heart vine, there is another one in a temperate region that has very much similar of a locket flower kind of a thing that does not grow well in the tropical region. So in a way, do take note not to get confused with another type of a common name of a bleeding heart vine that doesn't grow in the tropical region. So I hope you enjoyed my video here, and hope to see you in my next one. Take care and have a nice day. Bye.